Hi everybody. Today we are going to be doing a project that is kind of a clay replacement. So we're going to be working with salt dough. And salt dough works almost exactly like clay, except for you don't have to have a kiln. And you make the clay or the dough out of stuff you have around your house. So here's what you're going to need. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to get a half a cup of regular all-purpose flour. And you don't have to be like perfect with your measurements, but a half a cup of all-purpose flour. You're going to do a fourth of a cup, so whatever you do. So if you do a cup of flour, you do a half a cup of salt. If you do a half a cup of flour, which I just did, then I'm gonna do a fourth of a cup of salt. And this can be just regular table salt. I went ahead and got out another one because I thought I might run out. All right, fourth of a cup of table salt. All right, then the last ingredient is water. A fourth of a cup of water. And I'll make sure I put these measurements on the Encore website. Okay, and you can find this recipe anywhere on the internet. Okay, so now what you're gonna do is you're going to stir it up until it becomes a dough. Now, one thing that I have noticed is that sometimes you have to add more flour. And if that's the case, that's no big deal. You just need it to kind of act like clay. You need it to be thick enough where it acts like clay. All right. Now, if you want to make a bunch of this, you can make a bunch of it. One thing I'll tell you is if you wrap it up, it will last in the refrigerator. Like if you put saran wrap all around it, it'll last in the refrigerator for like a week and a half or something. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit more flour because my dough is a little bit wet and I want it to be more like clay. So I'm gonna keep stirring. Until it looks, see how it's starting to become kind of like a ball of clay. Yeah, still a little bit wet, but that'll work. Okay, so you're gonna keep stirring until it's nice and smooth. All right, now you have two different ways that you can color this dough. You could choose to work with it white, and then after it's dry, paint it with acrylic paint, or you can choose to add food coloring to your dough at this point, and then it'll be colored that color. So I'm gonna do a little bit of both for you today. All right, so I'm gonna tear off whatever amount I want to make a different color. So I'm gonna tear off some dough. All right, now I have the same food color I had before. I'm gonna maybe do blue. Okay, so remember food coloring stains. The rest of this stuff doesn't stain, so that's good. And I'm gonna put some food coloring in there. Now, it's gonna dye your hands a little bit. So you could do this with a spoon, or what you're gonna do is you're just gonna keep working with it until it becomes all the same color blue. And if you need to add more flour, because it's getting sticky, you can add more flour, which I'm gonna do. Salt dough is very forgiving. When I was in preschool, we made salt dough handprints. So they made a bunch of this, and then you got to put your little hand in it, and then they spray painted it with a spray paint to make it look like it was metal. That was a good preschool project. All right, so it's starting to get there. Still a little bit sticky. One thing you're gonna notice about salt dough is how much moisture there is in the air really makes a difference. So it's raining here today. It's gonna be raining all week. So this dough is gonna take a long time to dry this week. All right. So now let's say that I'm happy with that color. It's not all worked in, but you guys take your time and make it really, really even. Or if you like it kind of marbly, I guess that's okay too. Ooh, it's looking good now. All right, you can mold this just like you mold clay, except for you don't have to do the scratch and the slip method that we learn in class. So if you want to, you could just make it into like a coil and turn it into a snail or something, right? You could just roll it up. You could make it into something like that. Or you could roll it out flat and cut it with a cookie cutter to make it the shape you want. Or if you want to, you could make it into beads, like the necklace that I'm wearing. I'm gonna show you how to do that. So I'm gonna take a piece of dough, salt dough, and I'm gonna roll it into a ball. And I kind of like mine to be a little bit funky, but you can roll it into a ball. And what I did before is I rolled all my dough. I'm just gonna do 3. Let's say I wanna do a necklace of 3. Roll 3 into spheres. And then what I did is I got some flour on my hands so that it doesn't stick. And I took a skewer. You could use a chopstick or something. And I went around inside and I went from both sides just to make sure that that hole is nice and big so you don't have a problem when it dries. And then you're just gonna put it on a cookie sheet or put it on something to dry. I'll do another one. I'm going to go through, and then I'm gonna go through the other side just to make sure, smooth it out. And then I'm gonna put it on the cookie sheet. And the flour really does help make it not sticky. All right. Now, to get these dry, you have a couple choices. You could choose to let them sit on a cookie sheet for a week. Just let them sit out, maybe put it on top of your refrigerator or put it someplace like that. And it will dry out and turn rock hard. It'll be in its permanent state. Or if your parents will let you, you can turn the oven on the lowest temperature you can. My oven, the lowest it'll do is 200. And put it in the oven for like 2 hours. And you still may need to let it sit out for a little bit depending on how much moisture is in the air, which is a lot right now. So I'm gonna do one more thing. If you want, you could also flatten it out and do a cookie cutter. People, I did this year with my kids. We did Christmas ornaments with salt dough. And they turned out really cool. So I recommend something like that. Now, if you do something really big, sometimes it will kind of crack. So you don't want to do huge with this. So you could roll it out. And now I'm gonna do one little snail really quick. This is just like we do first grade normally. We do snail clay. We roll it out into a coil and then we roll them up. Roll them, roll them, roll them, roll them. And we just make them stand up. And he can just dry like this. Pretty cute. You could even maybe give him some little eyes. Maybe give him a little smile, a little nose. All right, so that's how you're gonna start with salt dough. Now, once it dries, it'll be rock hard, and I'm gonna show you something after I wash my hands, how you can string them to make them in a necklace, just like mine. Okay. So, this necklace that I made, these are all pieces of salt dough. I did 4 different colors, and I made this yesterday, and it's rock hard today. So you'll see that the color lightens as it dries. It's pretty cool. All right. And here's one that I didn't do anything with. See, it's hard. Okay, so let's say you didn't do food coloring and you just keep it white and you make beads or you do slabs, which is like the cookie cutters, or you just do hand molding or modeling, which would be like the snail. You let it dry, then you can choose to paint it. And what I would do to paint it is I would use acrylic paint, which is the same thing we used for our bow. We've been using acrylic paint some. So I have 2 colors here. And what I would do with that is if you have a bead, and so this is if you want to do both, do the colored bead and do paint. You're just going to, you can just add like stripes, and acrylic paint works great on this. All right, I could go all the way around. Then I could add some, maybe some green dots. Anyway, you can just paint it like regular. So this is a choice too, to paint your salt dough with acrylic paint, which is a very good choice. All right, now let's say you're ready to make your necklace, which I will be wearing this to school next year. So be looking forward to that because I am seriously digging it. For the string, you can use any sort of yarn or anything you have around. Just know that the thicker the string, the bigger the hole you need to make. So I had this friendship bracelet making string. So I have this. I would just take the string, make it whatever length you want. And for this kind of necklace, I would make it long enough that you can take it off your head because you're not gonna have a clasp. You don't wanna tie something on you and then not be able to get it off. So make it whatever length you think you need it to be, or maybe think about if you're gonna give it to someone. And then you would just take your bead and string it on your string through the hole. All right, one last thing you could do depending on kind of what you have at your house. If your parents have any sort of spray varnish or Mod Podge or anything like that, I love the single bead too. You can spray that on your salt dough before you make it into a necklace or just before you put it out on display. And all I do is just tie this in a knot and then there you go. So spray varnish or Mod Podge will make it shiny if you want it to be shiny, but I like this kind of sea glass looking look. All right, so salt dough recipe. Whatever measurement you make for your flour, so let's say 1 cup, half of that measurement you make of salt and water, okay? And if it's too sticky, you just add more flour. And I hope you guys make something cool. Remember, you can heat it in the oven at the lowest temperature to dry it out, or you can just let it sit on your counter, which includes no oven, which is extra safe. So I hope you guys make something cool.